The presentation was an overview of the science that we are trying to accumulate for the Falklands to better help landowners in their understanding of the different challenges that we're facing. So we had a talk from Sari about projects that they're currently undertaking and are starting to undertake from Falklands Conservation, and an update on the Carbon Flux Tower project as well. And Professor Jim McAdam also gave his overview in terms of how important data collection is to help us understand how evapotranspiration might affect the land and then ultimately productivity for landowners. It was also a good opportunity to introduce the weather station network. So we've managed to have 15 weather stations put out so far on East Falklands, West Falklands, and a couple on the outer islands too. The first one was early this year, so we've only had a few months of data. Hopefully by the end of the year I'll have a good 6 months worth of data that we can start to look at the averages in terms of monthly rainfall and start to compare those variations from different locations to see, how does certain locations compare with each other in terms of their amount of rainfall, maybe their predominant wind direction, and just then start to gather that picture as to how that might be influencing what happens on the ground. That will just enhance our understanding of how the land is impacted by weather and how it's ultimately changing as well. The weather stations are collecting just the standard weather data, so that's wind, direction and speed, rain, and the solar as well. There are some soil moisture stations that are linked to them as well, so it will give us a good overview of how the environment responds to the weather. So if we can overlay them with the rainfall data, we'll be able to get a picture of how rainfall and the soil moisture start to link together. Is the rain just sort of sitting on top of the soil and then just running off, or is it actually infiltrating? And if it is, how far down is it going? And that all gives a really good picture as to the health of the environment, but then also then leads to an understanding of how the vegetation may be faring in different weather conditions. Landowners are very much guided by the weather, and so understanding the weather and certainly the extremes that we're starting to see, rainfall or lack of rainfall, wind speed and that sort of thing can impact day-to-day activities. So it's really important from that side of things. But in terms of long-term data collection, having that long-term picture of how trends might be changing and then ultimately affecting the environment and the ecosystems and the different species in that will enable us to plan for any mitigations that we might need to roll out to be able to support the land as it's experiencing a changing climate.